Howdy folks, welcome back to my World of Tanks replays with the mighty Jingles. Today we're going to have a look at the new French Tier 5 light tank, the ELC AMX. Now, I did have a look at this on the test server, but I didn't look at it in great detail and I didn't really play many games on it. But it's an interesting little tank, and I decided I was going to give it another look when 7.5 went live. And 7.5 has gone live, so here it is. Now, the first thing that you notice when you look at this thing, well, that's not strictly true. You don't actually notice it when you look at this thing because there's no sense of scale. So let's have a look at just how small this thing actually is. There's the ELC AMX, and here's a T50-2. Did you see that? Do you want to see it again? There's the T50-2, and here's the ELC AMX. This is the smallest tank in the game, by a large margin. It's half the size of a T50-2, and it can do 65 kilometers per hour. It has a power to weight ratio of 34.92. Now, just to put that into some sort of perspective, everybody knows how blindingly fast the T50-2 is. That has a power to weight ratio of 34.69. This has a better power to weight ratio than the T50-2. It doesn't have the same top speed, but it accelerates faster. It turns better. Wow, that's an interesting little tank. And does it turn better? Well, let's compare them, because the T50-2 is the tank that everybody's going to compare this thing to, and for good reason. So there's the vehicle details, and where are you? There you are. So it has less hit points, and you will die in 2 shots to just about anything that shoots at you in this thing. But that's not a massive issue, and we'll get onto that later. It's half the weight of a T50-2, and it has half the engine power. But that's fine, because it's got half the weight, so effectively it actually has a better power to weight ratio than the T50-2. Having more powerful engine means the T50-2 can get up to 72 km per hour, but this thing isn't slow. It can do 65. Now the T50-2 does traverse 46 degrees per second turning speed, so it does actually turn faster than the ELC AMX. But I find sometimes in the T50-2 that because it is so quick and because it corners so steeply, that it can actually be quite hard to steer. You don't really get that problem in the ELC AMX. And if you can master driving the T50-2, that's not a problem, that's an advantage. I fully acknowledge that. But this is just easier to drive, because it is quick, but it's not as stupidly quick as that thing. And it does turn very well, but it doesn't turn quite as insanely quickly as this thing. So it's just easier to drive. Armour-wise, well, 14mm front, 12 sides, 10 rear. It doesn't have any armour at all. I mean, people say the T50-2 and the T50 don't have armour. They're IS-7s compared to this thing. It has no armour whatsoever. Armour that thing wouldn't stop a bullet, let alone a tank shell. So forget it. And you only have 400 health. But the other interesting thing about this thing is it doesn't actually have a turret. It looks like it has a turret. It doesn't really have a turret. It has a very, very, very narrow traverse, forward traverse only, on that gun. But the gun is a very, very interesting feature. Now it has a choice of 3, but you're going to want to forget about the other 2, the first 2, because this is where it's at, the 90mm. Slow rate of fire. It only has a crew of 2, and it's a very, very small tank. There isn't a lot of space inside there. So 2 crewmen trying to manhandle a 90mm shell into that gun in such a confined space, it only gets off 5 shots a minute. But it has 170 penetration, and it does 240 average damage. Not that accurate, 0.38, and horrifically slow aiming time, 2.9 seconds. Now this isn't a bad gun, but you need to bear a couple of things in mind. And again, we're looking at those stats that you can't tell from looking at the stats of the gun, but which do affect the performance in the game. And it's the size of the aiming circle, and it's just monstrously big. It's the size of the state of Nebraska. This thing cannot hit targets while it's on the move. It just can't do it. You might get lucky and 1 shot in 20 will actually hit what you're firing at while this thing's moving. But in order to hit something, you really need to be stopped and spend some time aiming. Otherwise it's going to miss. And you have a very, very slow reload. I think it takes about 12 seconds to reload this thing. And that is where this thing is at its most vulnerable. Because if you were in any other tier 5 light tank, you could scream up behind the artillery, park there, turn your turret, pump a couple of shots into them, kill them and zip off again. You can't really do that in this. Because you need to be pointing towards them to fire. And then you need to sit there for 12 seconds because you won't one-shot them. Does 240 damage. You'll need to hit them twice. And that takes 12 seconds. And you're stationary. And if you stop moving in this thing, you die. So it's not like any of the other tier 5 light tanks. But that doesn't mean it's not any good. It is very good. But you have to play it, surprise, surprise, it's French, you have to play it completely differently to the German, the Russian, and the American tier 5 light scout tanks. And that's not a bad thing. You know, difference is good. Variety is the spice of life, and other such cliches, but the fact that Wargaming are giving us this tank that plays so differently to the others, while still being a potent little machine, and you don't have to play this thing. You know, if you like the way the other tier 5 lights work, then by all means keep playing the other tier 5 lights. But this thing's different. And if you fancy something a bit different, this is the tank for you. So I've got a couple of replays lined up, and in the first two I show you what not to do in the ELC AMX, as I was kind of getting to grips with it. I'll show you what it's not good at. And then in the third clip we'll see what I think it is better at than any other tank in the game. So let's have a look. So here it is in the battlefield. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at what you shouldn't do in the ELC AMX, which is kind of the things that you normally do in any of the other tier 5 light tanks, and it just doesn't work in this thing for a number of reasons, but yeah, we'll get on to that. And then we're going to see me doing what I think you should be doing in the ELC AMX. Yeah, your opinions may vary, but you know, you come here for my opinions, and this is what my opinion is. So the first thing you should never do when you're in this thing is go anywhere that you cannot get out of. So we're rushing for the hill because we're the fastest tank here, and we've got a buttload of mediums who I expected to come up here with me, but of course they don't. And now I'm stuck up here as you can see, completely surrounded with no support, and I've got no way out. So the first thing that you never do in an ELC AMX is go anywhere that you can't escape from, because you'll just die. Now the second thing, and this is all situational, so I'm going to say you should never do this. Well, I mean, most of the time you should never do this, but exercise your own judgment, depending on the situation. But in most cases, the second thing you should never ever do in an ELC AMX is stop moving. And the reason is because it is your single biggest strength, and it's your only defense. This thing has no armor at all. I mean, people say, oh, the French tanks have no armor. No, this thing really has no armor. But it's even smaller than a T-50, and it's just as fast and just as maneuverable. "12-second reload on that 90mm gun, though. And if you stop moving in this thing, you just sacrificed everything that makes you special. Because this thing has one of the best, if not the best, power to weight ratios in the game. And if you stop using that power to weight ratio, well, you may as well be driving a medium tank or a heavy tank. Yeah, or whatever. You may as well not be driving an ELC AMX, because that is what makes this thing good. It's the blistering speed, the manoeuvrability. It's not that 90mm gun, although that is the most powerful gun on a tier 5 light tank. But you should definitely, and this is incredibly stupid, not be doing this. Because that gun has such a long aiming time that if you stop, particularly when somebody's already got his gun pointing towards you, and yeah, this was stupid, but you know, it needs to be emphasized, you never ever ever want to stop moving when you're in this thing, unless you know that you can kill whatever is threatening you with one shot. And don't forget, that turret only points forward, so you have to get behind them and turn your tank around so that you're pointing towards him, and then kill him before he can shoot back at you, because if you don't, he is going to kill you. So that's enough about what you shouldn't be doing in the ELC AMX. Let's have a look at what I think you probably should be doing. Now, this is our toughest game yet in the ELC. It's a tier 9 game, but you know, you're a tier 5 light tank, you can expect to be put into these games. One thing that a lot of people, well, that I have never yet seen discussed in a YouTube video or you know anything about these light tanks. You see a lot of people very anxious to jump up in defense of their ability to kill and do damage. Now that's fine. But what I feel they all do, you know, the Chaffee, the T50-2 particularly, the VK2801, and this thing, that nobody ever talks about, is the nuisance factor that they provide. Particularly to artillery, because artillery get very, very nervous when they see light tanks appear on the map. And that's because everybody hates artillery. And in a lot of random games, artillery can't even count on their own team trying to help them out. And they're usually left to fend for themselves if a scout gets through. It's just harsh reality, it's the way things are. But that's only part of the factor. Now, look at all these guys. There's a Panther 2. There's a Tiger P. There's a Type 59. There's a T30. There's enemy artillery. And they're all... Now, I don't know if this is just because they sense an easy kill, and that may be part of the reason. Nope, fired, missed. I don't actually hit and damage anybody in this game. That's not the point. Now, I don't know if it's just because these guys sense an easy kill, and that could be a large part of the factor. But there are far more dangerous things than me coming up that flank. Look at that. 2 IS-3s, an E50, a Type 59, a Tiger at the back. Do you think these guys... Look at them. Look at them all chasing after me. So the havoc that you can cause in one of these things, just the nuisance value. You're like an annoying little mosquito. Look at this T29. He's actually abandoned defending the road to come back and deal with me. No, I'm sorry, pal, but you can't turn your turret fast enough. So the amount of trouble that I'm causing... that Type 59 is still trying to get me. The amount of trouble that I'm causing is out of all proportion to the damage that I can actually do with this thing. And it's almost as if you don't even have to have a gun to cause this ridiculous amount of trouble for the enemy team, just by being there and not getting hit. However, you know, everybody's luck runs out sooner or later. And so, is this what the ELC's good at? Well, it is good at it. I mean, that's undeniable. Look at all those guys that came running after me trying to get me. Is it because they sensed an easy kill? Well, yeah, probably. If people see an easy chance to get an extra number next to their name on the team list, they tend to go for it. You can use that to your advantage. You can be that distraction. Take their attention away from the real threat, the IS-3s and the E50s coming up behind you. And if they're stupid, they'll fall for it. You know, if they're kill hungry, they'll fall for it. You can use that to your advantage. The amount of trouble you can cause in this thing is just out of all proportion to the actual threat that it poses. But make no mistake, you do pose a threat. That is a 90mm gun on a tier 5 light tank. And if they don't go chasing after you, you can hunt down and kill their artillery with ease. And then circle back and start putting shots into their asses. So is it just hunger for kills that makes people chase after ELC AMXs? Well, yeah, it probably is. But there's also that, well, if we do let him go, what sort of trouble are we going to be in factor? And I find that even more so than on a T50-2, because you do have that 90mm gun, and it can penetrate and hurt tanks much, much bigger than you. It can wreck artillery if you can hit them. I don't know, I think I might have found what this tank is really, really good at. And it's not really the damage it can cause. And it can cause damage, I'm just not very good at it. But even if you don't hit a single target, and I didn't in this game, just have a look at that flank. They had a Panther II, a Tiger P, a T-30 and a Type 59 protecting that flank. Where are they all? Well, the Type 59's over here, the T-30's over there, and he's heading this way. That AMX M4 was defending this railway line, now he's not. And this is all because of me. And I really do think that's what the ELC AMX is exceptionally good at, and it's just causing confusion behind the enemy ranks. The amount of people that just abandon what they're doing and go after you, whether or not that's just to get a kill, because they think you're an easy kill, or because they know that if they leave you alone, they can kiss their artillery goodbye, and you can then pop up behind them and really hurt them. It's irrelevant, it doesn't matter. You do cause such chaos if you can get behind the enemy front line. And I think this tank does that far better than a T50-2 does, because it's just as quick, but it's even harder to hit. And that, I think, is where the strengths of the ELC AMX lie. Now, I'm going to be playing this more over the next few days, because I'm intrigued by this tank. It's an interesting little fella. And we'll see if I'm right. So, I hope you enjoyed the replays. Your opinions may differ, and that's fine. So, you know, if you've got something you'd like to say about my conclusions, by all means, let me know in the comments. So until the next time, I'll catch you on the battlefield.